I stay up on this really awesome YouTube channel that just kind of summarizes every week like what the developments in AI were, and it is crazy, dude. I mean, it's really crazy, and we are just now barely scratching the surface. The only thing that I'm convinced that I know for certain is that December 2024, the world is going to look different already than it does February 2024. This is going to be one of the most whiplash inducing technological innovative years that we will probably experience. The interesting thing that I think about a lot is that babies being born right now are only going to know the world of AI. I mean, that's going to fundamentally alter the human experience for this generation that's being born today. What effects are we going to see from this? Is there going to be a camp of purists who are like, no to AI? And like, is that even going to be possible with how integrated it's going to be in our current life without having to go start like woodsy communes? All I know is the world is writing the greatest movie script of all time right now.
Welcome back to another episode of A Path Unfolding. My guest today is a dear friend and extremely talented producer, Savage. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Glad to be here, man. I'm feeling good. How are you?
I'm good, man. It's been a week. It's been actually an emotional week for me, but I'm really excited to sit down and dig into your story. Yeah, so man, it's been amazing watching your career unfold. So I really wanted to get into that today and talk about we were introduced through a mutual friend. John, he goes by Deemster now. He used to be Run DMT. He came to me and said, "Man, I think I've got somebody really special that you should work with." And now we're here today. So I would just love for you to tell the story of how we met and how all this has unfolded and get into it.
Yeah, man. I remember a lot. Firstly, Gravitas was just kind of always an exemplary label, doing things the right way that focused on the music first, and what hype took a back seat. Things like virality and just like all of the kind of more surface level aspects of this industry, and I could just really tell genuinely that the music and the art came first. So it was just like when I was sifting through potential labels to work with, it was always top on my list, like without even a close second. And I remember, it's funny, joining a Zoom that you were hosting to just kind of talk about branding, marketing, labels, etc. This was, man, dude, I don't know what, like 6 years ago now, maybe something like that. And you were just kind of giving various people advice, and I was like, I know this guy has to know what he's talking about, da da da. And so I was like, I'm joining. So I popped in, and we chatted a little bit. You gave me a little bit of a couple pieces of advice, and I remember being like, I'm wrapping up a project. I'm gonna send you guys a demo in a couple of months. So like, this is my name. Like, be on the lookout for it, whatever. And that demo was my Solstice album, which was really
Wow.
cool to think about. And yeah, I remember, at that time I had just taken a very long hiatus from releasing music. Prior to that, it was a 2-year break I took. I was making music, but I didn't want to release anything. Prior to that, I was making a slightly different vibe of music. I was still trying to figure out like what it was that I really truly wanted to birth, and like how I could really fine tune a vibe that genuinely felt like the unique fingerprint expression of like the core of my being. And figuring that out was the hard part, right? And like really sitting with that. And so I was still very unsure, because once I reached that point where I'm like, okay, like this feels unique to me. I got out of my own way. I completely bypassed the urge at that point finally to make music that I thought that people would like, or that I thought would further my career or whatever. So like this was just this project that was just like fully music that I made for myself. And so it was like kind of vulnerable, honestly. And so I sent it, and I was like, like, I won't be upset if this is, because like I felt that this music was super niche, and like it was like definitely not going to be like a mass accepted form of music. And it was kind of, I was just trying to carve my own lane, but I did so by just, again, stepping out of my own way. It wasn't like I'm like sitting here focusing like, how do I be this or be that or whatever. I was just like allowing the creative force of the universe to like filter itself through the lens of Donnie, right, in this
Mhm.
creative process. And so I'm like, all right. So I sent it over, and I remember you emailed me back and you were like, damn dude, this is dope. And I was like, wow, like that's when it really hit me. I was like, wow, okay, like so people who are, you know, do this all day are like really going to be into this maybe. So I'm like, okay. And then so, you know, we chatted for a while and you guys decided to release it, and I was like, all right. And you know, you guys asked me, as you always do, y'all are like, well, like where do you envision this premiering, or what platforms do you want to partner with? And I was like, dude, honestly, Sheave Light is like my favorite YouTube channel. And what's so special about that channel, if you read through the comments, is that so many people from all over the planet discover this kind of music in all of its various iterations and vibes for the first time on that channel. And they're just absolute, like it changes their lives, and they express it in the comments all day long. And so I was like, man, Sheave Light would be awesome. And you were like, do you have any ideas for visuals? And I'm like, man, I really want Taz visuals. He's this Austrian and just absolutely incredible. Like I've never seen any other visuals that complement my music the way his does. And I used to, like when I would be wrapping up a track, I would throw on one of Taz's videos and mute it and play my track with it and just like visualize like having my music. Literally, this is a real thing. Like visualize having my music with Taz's visuals on the Sheave Light YouTube channel. And so we fucking did it. That's exactly what happened. And the rest is
Yes,
history. It was
dude.
really cool, man. Like when we put that album out, I really felt like I felt like people would dig it, but that it would be a very specific, like kind of just niche audience, really, like I said. But then the next thing I know, like people were sending me videos of their toddlers dancing to it and watching the video. People like my Catholic grandma was into it. I'm like, what is happening? And that's when it really started to hit me that this ancient future vibe situation is could be as universal as I felt that it was. And so that's when I just started to gain confidence in the ability to just kind of like seed that vibe out, and it just created this feedback loop. And it's been really amazing, and obviously very life changing in ways I can't even, that are still unfolding today, every day.
Man, I'll say like this is why I wake up in the morning. These stories and these journeys and getting to work with artists like you and facilitate some aspect of that growth and that manifestation, the connection with the art and the beauty and like the work that you did to clear the space to bring that to be, how hard it is to not get in your own way is such a lesson. And the fact that you had this vision, you had this idea, and one, you had it, and then two, you worked really hard step by step to get there, is it's such a lesson. It's such like the thing, like what this journey is for. And inside of that, right, there's so much growth and there's so much opportunity. And like you said, you've now like the world is feeding back to you and it's showing you like, yeah, it's really saying like, yes, like do more of this, do more of this. This is really opening up things for you. Getting to see you play the main stage at Arcadia Aubrey Marcus Festival, which, you know, there was some early on, like you're getting to connect you with him a bit and having your own connections blossom with him, and how much he is and Violana have like really championed your music, and that community just shows how like interconnected it is. And then when, you know, connected you with Liquid Bloom, and then you guys have made songs, we're raising money for, you know, indigenous tribes for Future Nativo. That is, it's just so rewarding, it's so exciting to see that. And it's been an absolute honor and pleasure. So I'm so excited to see where things are going for you. And I think for me, when I think about this, like I, the set that you played at Envision, like I had tears. Like I didn't get to go, but we premiered that again on Sheave Light, and watching you like live out this dream and getting to again express that through Sheave Light, this like great place. like I had tears in my eyes. It was such a powerful moment to see that for you, and to be a part of that. And like you said, this niche music, right? But it's not like we're tapping into like fundamental vibrations, rhythms, patterns, that energies that people like they know inside their hearts, their souls, their bodies. And we're like rediscovering that. So that the term that you've coined, you know, is so perfect. I love it. So yeah, let's talk about that.
Like I say a lot, and I've said before, it's as we are kind of entering this emerging paradigm where we're having this psychedelic renaissance and the reemergence and remembrance of ancient wisdom and the importance of integrating it into our kind of current dopamine fueled lives. And then that's running parallel to the emergence of AI and machine learning and exponential parabolic technological innovation, which we're just scratching the surface of. Shit is about to get really bizarre, and like it's concerning that like most of us don't really seem to understand how fast things are happening, and it's
Yeah.
really hard to wrap around anyway. But anyway, as we're having those two paths kind of run parallel to each other, oftentimes people tend to find themselves like picking a camp. It seems like, well, like, no, the ancient ways are the way, well, no, da da da, like whatever, when in fact everybody seems to be viewing these two things as polar opposites and like a divergence. But when you can integrate them, and you can begin to view these timelines as a convergence. And as we're having both of these two things run parallel to one another, it seems to me, and it seems to a lot of other people now, that the convergence of them is kind of like the only way forward, because
Mm.
it's the only way to really be able to wield the power at our fingertips with this technological innovation as well, in ways that are meaningful, purposeful, don't increase the distance in status quo and caste systems and the social just kind of pyramid and hierarchies. And you know, I mean, the military industrial complex, like when are we going to get that under control? It's like as we're just now scratching the surface of reintegrating ancient wisdom into society. And because we're scratching that surface, that's why a lot of shit's super still bizarre and weird and Instagrammy, and there's just kind of, you know,
Yeah.
there's so many layers to the integration of something as profound as the reemergence of spiritual understanding in a genuine fashion, that's not like, you know, ridden with controlling dogma and other systems that have kind of hindered us from being able to develop like real self-empowering spiritual system understandings over the, you know, past couple of centuries. And I think and feel really deeply that this type of music acts as a subconscious operating system upgrade that allows us, whether consciously or unconsciously, to begin to view those two timelines as a convergence instead of a divergence. And that's obviously because of the nature of the music itself. And music is an encoded language, right, that speaks right past our neurofilters and oftentimes our existing belief systems that color our reality. And so the music in and of itself, being this infusion of ancient organic instruments and nature sounds and just really earth ridden stuff, but mixing it with this digital manipulation and using futuristic production techniques to really unify our current societal timeline with that kind of ancient organica version of reality that we all hold as this kind of figment of our imagination, into this one universal thing. And that's always been the intention. And like to have that be so well received has been absolutely crazy. And but to have it be received on the caliber of the intention itself, because it's not like people are like, oh yeah, like that's groovy, damn, that slaps, like whatever. People really hear it very often for what I intended it to be, and report like transformational experiences or reconfigurations of their perspective. So that just shows me like, wow, like music really is this powerful. And it's interesting because during that 2 year hiatus that I took from releasing music, you know, I was sitting with plant teachers and just like really ayahuasca sat me down classroom style in one particular ceremony. I'll never forget it. And really allowed me to examine my beliefs about the limitations of music and what its utility was, and like how far you can go as it pertains to shifting somebody's perspective of reality as a whole with music. Like, what is music? What can it be? What will you let it be? Because like whatever I believe it can be, we can figure it out and make it be that thing, right? And this is just individual in my own beliefs. Music's always been that thing. It was
Yeah.
just within myself. I wasn't allowing myself to believe that something that I create, or even something that I let into my own field that somebody else created, could have that effect reliably. And so that was one of my most profound ayahuasca sits. And after that was when I really committed to like, okay, I'm not releasing music until I feel like it is something that's far deeper than entertainment, but also accessible at the same time. Like, how do I create this vibe? Like, how do I make it fun and deeply impactful at the same time? And like, so that's when I started, like really trying to craft that thing. And so, to circle back to your question, the ancient future quote unquote kind of vibe just encapsulates the anything and anyone who, and it's more so a mindset than a genre of music as well. It's like anyone who wants to really bridge the gap between the ancient and the future in ways that create a positive ripple into society and into people's mindsets, belief systems. As we enter this new paradigm, like, something has to change. There's a quote that I love. Man, I can't remember who it's from, but it's that energy is much better spent in a leaky boat switching boats than trying to patch the leak, right? And so like something drastic like has to change, and something has to begin to seed that change. And in my opinion, creativity and art has always been the thing that's changed the world when it needed it the most. So it's kind of where I'm at with that.
Yeah, I think, looking at it, I see this community forming, right? Like you see on Sheave Light and around your music and around Gravitas, around people like Closey. And that, when it takes on that life and that meaning, it's, yeah, it's like the music is kind of the starting point, but then it becomes this community. And that's really when amazing things start to happen, and these connections and changes will shift. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. For me, like, my experience with Burning Man was that first inkling of like, wow, things could be different. Up until that point, it had been like not very fun festivals and clubs, and sort of like a lot of clout chasing and ego and who's cool and who's not. And then all of a sudden Burning Man was like, showed me a whole new way of being. And there's a lot of that still happening out there, but that was like, wow. And that was the impetus for creating Gravitas and this whole world. So it is this like snowball, this compounding effect. So yeah, again, like going back to your set and vision, like watching that whole group of people experience your music like that on that stage was such a profound, like, exclamation mark on the Solstice EP and all of the work and intentions that you had put together. And it's been amazing to watch that develop. And again, watching Aubrey and Vylana champion your music and sort of their community and how much they resonate with you is also a huge deal to me, because it's just interesting, right? And we're not seeking validation, but when people with that level of influence can get behind something and say they feel it and they resonate with it, and all of a sudden there's just, again, like, there's these worlds overlapping. And I'm so excited to see that, he jumped in, started his own festival, and then to have you headline that was like, wow, yes, like this is for real, right? And then the number of artists that played that festival that I've gotten to work with and that I've championed for, I'm like, wow, like this feels like a dream. This feels, never in my mind in a million years did I think that in 2011 when I started Gravitas that we would be sitting here like having this conversation and thinking like that. If you look at the lineup for Texas Eclipse, like, I'm like, holy cow, like this is a real thing. Yeah, so I've been loving your podcast. I know that's been it's a lot of work. I think that, again, like, you have so much to offer, even besides the music. Like you're such an intellectual. You read things, you understand some things. Like I wanted to hit a little bit on like some of the other things you've done outside of music, like your other way. You know, you had this Celivate drink, and that you helped develop, and like I just like you seem to have such a thirst for learning. Like have you always been that way? Have you always just been such a deep learner, or did you develop that?
I have, man. For anybody listening who's familiar with human design, I'm a 4-1 projector in that system, and the number one is the investigator line, and it is me to the T. For anybody who doesn't subscribe to those kinds of systems, astrology, human design, I Ching, I will tell you that a few years ago I was you, and human design and gene keys absolutely blow my box. So I really got into human design, and I share it with a ton of people. And anyway, it's helped me a lot is how descriptive and how on point accurate it is. And the 4-1 projector, the one in that kind of overall profile name, is the investigator line, and describes me to the T, meaning that like I have an insatiable hunger for knowledge, and I'm uncomfortable talking about anything if I don't feel that I have a deep grasp of it. And so I'm constantly trying to develop a deep grasp of things. And
Yeah.
it's like a compulsion that I can't help. Trust me when I tell you it's a blessing and a curse. But I, yeah, I mean, but yeah, and then something shifted for me. So, obviously I grew up here in Louisiana, and psilocybe cubensis mushrooms grow in cow fields rampantly after good rain. And so many of us find that out at a young age here. And, when I was 14, a freshman in high school, I found this amazing, miraculous field. And I used to just go fill bags up with mushrooms after a good rain, and I would put them in a crawfish boiling pot and make tea and split it with however many friends would hang out. And then inevitably, one time you end up with not that many people to split it with, you end up having a sacramental level experience by
Mm.
accident, right? And that's what happened. And I was like, wow, this is church. Like nothing has ever made me feel connected to something greater than myself like this experience right here. And that just absolutely blew my mind. And I needed more context. How is it possible that ingesting an exogenous substance can have this profound of an effect on my consciousness? And so when I was 14, 15, I started getting extraordinarily fascinated with neurochemistry, and was just like ingesting as much information and reading books and published medical literature that I could about different receptor systems and like what we knew about the action of psychedelics. And then that led to me being fascinated with other areas of neurochemistry, because I was prescribed amphetamines at age 6. And when I was in kindergarten, first it was Ritalin, and then Adderall came out, and I was on Adderall, and then they would make me go to the office to take a second Adderall pill after lunch that I didn't eat because I took the first Adderall pill. And it was just like this vicious cycle that it wasn't just me, like so many other
Mm.
people that I knew, were on these amphetamines. I'm like, there has to be another way. So anyway, I started just like, also in addition to the fascination with psychedelic neurochemistry, I became fascinated with other receptors that are involved in focus and awareness and attention span and whatnot. And ultimately, it's my belief, and that of many others, that the prescribing kids amphetamine situation is symptomatic of a broken educational system, and not broken children. But that's another conversation in and of itself. But anyway, I got so fascinated with all of this that I started just like ordering raw materials and making my own supplement stacks that were geared towards focus and whatnot. And because when I started college, I wanted to stop taking Adderall. And so I did that, and then I would hand them out and everything, and people were like, you could sell this. So I started a business I did that for 7 years. That's a really long story. Ultimately ended up during my Saturn return making the decision to leave my company and pursue music full time, which is the greatest decision that I've ever made. It was scary. It was definitely a cliff jump, but
Yeah.
I did it, and I wake up with a lot more fulfillment every day, and a lot more feelings of deeper purpose. And I contemplate a lot the fact that my music and art and whatever else is what I'm going to leave behind. in the wake of my life. And so I I want to focus on that, genuinely making some kind of positive difference in the world, and I feel like I'm much more equipped to do so in the realm of music and art and creativity than I am in any other realm. So that's just kind of where I put all of my focus and attention these days.
Mm.
But I guess that's kind of the story of where my like deeper fascinations lie. And then there's, you know, to kind of circle back to the visualization and manifestation kind of aspect, in 2016 I found the Law of One material, which anyone listening who is familiar with me probably knows I talk about a good bit. And you know, a large portion of that is understanding ourselves as an individuated facet of one single infinite creator, aka like a broadband signal of consciousness, whatever you want to call it, God, source. There's a gazillion names. Ultimately, when you can kind of deepen, and this is like a lifelong process, right? But as you can deepen your understanding of creation as a mental matrix, as a projection of, as this creator kind of dreaming itself into being, and understanding that the unconscious or the subconscious mind is that portion of consciousness that connects all of us. And you understand that everything that you call into your life is a reflection of what's going on in that kind of unconscious realm, and that what we can consciously contemplate is the tip of a very large iceberg. And so like when you kind of really take hold of these, and I've demonstrated this to myself to be true, um you know, repeatedly, and just like when you can really kind of take hold of those unconscious kind of catalysts that come into your life and give you opportunities and potentials, and like you really combine intention with action, which equals manifestation, right? And like really understand that like if you do the things that you know you're capable of doing, and you do them with the intention for the good of all, that you're able to visualize and literally call things into your life. And you know, that's what was so special, circling back to the Envision set. I said it like a few minutes into the set. I was like, yo, I've been visualizing this moment for years, and we're here.
Envision Festival. It is an unspeakable honor to be here with you guys. I've been visualizing this moment for years, and we're here. How about that?
It's crazy, dude, because like Envision was always my number one bucket list festival. It's just always been the absolute, or what I felt was the absolute perfect vibe for my music, and a place I really wanted to just share and seed this frequency at. And so it was surreal being up there on Luna with a prime slot for my first time there. It's like 4:15 in the morning, but it was Sunday night. Everybody always stays up Sunday night and
Yeah.
catches the beach sunrise. And people showed up, showed out, and then they just like, on top of that, they really received the whole set like in the way that I intended to broadcast it. And it was just so special. That felt like such this like completion of a cycle, but at the same time it was also the beginning of a cycle, obviously. And so it's crazy, dude. I mean, as we're recording this, I'm like a month away from running it back, round two, Luna stage, same situation. And just so infinitely grateful for just where this path has brought me. And also, like you're saying, you know, about like Aubrey and Liquid Bloom, and it's where I grew up. I was really an anomaly. Like, that's another reason that I held some of the limiting beliefs that I held about music, and about, you know, how far I could take something, or whatever. And it's been unbelievable to me how like creating something that's a reflection of you calls in community of other people that are a reflection of you, and then you begin to exist in a hall of mirrors. And when you exist in a hall of mirrors, you are constantly faced with affirmation, opportunity for growth, opportunity to check yourself, opportunity to, you know, just so many opportunities that you don't get when you're not in a community that can serve as these reflections to each other. And it's been the craziest synchronicities, and just like odd circumstances that have connected me with some of these people, and it's all a result of putting out this music and people feeling like they understand me because they heard my music. Like they, and it's an interesting thing with artists. A lot of times we project onto somebody, like from hearing their music, like what kind of person they might be or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that people are often, they have a at least semi-correct projection of me, I think, because I feel that I succeeded in crafting this vibe that's just an expression of me. So like that communicates the power of music to speak this language. Like if people hear my language, they're like, I resonate with that language. Like I must resonate with this human being that you know made this thing or whatever. Even though I don't necessarily identify with the stuff that I create, it's still received in that way. And so that was really dope. Like years ago, I tried to get Aubrey, because I loved his podcast. You know, I was running a supplement company as well. I was into all the plant medicine as well. I was like, this dude feels like kindred soul for sure.
Yeah.
And you know, I tried to get him a record that I made a long time ago. I was trying through various kind of channels, and it didn't work. And then his CEO at the time, what's his name, Jason Havey, I think, saw one of my ads on Instagram, messaged me and was like, this is dope. And I was like, yo, you work with On It? I was like, I've been trying to get this to Aubrey. Can you show Aubrey? And he's like, yeah, I'll show him tomorrow. And tomorrow was the day that Aubrey got in his car accident that almost killed him. So I like laid off of it. And years later, 4 or 5 years later, I get a random Instagram message, and it was Vailana. And I didn't even know that she was his partner. And she sent me this really heartfelt voice message just saying that she was like, me and my husband just co-hosted an ayahuasca retreat at Soltara in Costa Rica, and we were looking for something to play for the ecstatic dance at the end, and Spotify served us your album, and I just want to thank you. Yeah, I was like, she was like, I just want to thank you for your medicine. Your album ended up being what we played for the whole ecstatic dance. It was all we needed. And I was like, yo, like what is happening? And then I pieced 2 and 2 together, and I was like, whoa, this is Aubrey's partner and like whatever. And then, you know, we just started chatting. Next thing, you know, I like met Aubrey, and then Fit for Service community. Now I consider Aubrey a good friend. And, you know, then I, you know, helped produce Vailana's album. And it's crazy the way that art, and obviously this is not unique to me, I watch this happen with my other artist friends all the time. It's like when you put this thing out into the world, it literally is just a beacon for people who are on your wavelength, who resonate, to like reach out and welcome you to their communities, and just like just want to relate and learn from you, teach you just learn and teach one another constantly, and really build that sense of like genuine tight-knit community as a result of just an expression of creativity. And it's like the most magical thing, because the universe will just weave these synchronicities and just when Liquid Bloom reached out to me the first time, that was wild to me. And now we're really good friends too, and you know, have done numerous collaboration projects that support indigenous in the Amazon together, and just like make cool music. We're about to do a little tour together this summer, and it's just crazy how, you know, just again, I can't stress it enough, it's like when you put that thing out into the world, it calls people in, and just like everyone can do this in whatever format or fashion you want. Whatever the thing is that you create, as long as you make it a genuine representation of you, it will attract people and relationships into your life that you didn't even know you needed. It's crazy.
Yes. Amen. I mean, for me, you know, my expression was gravitas, and it's you know, it's similar to your story. Like, I had been really involved in music and DJing, but I didn't really have a full-fledged offering yet. And it took me really sitting and thinking and like, similar to what you did, like, what really can I offer the world? And I realized, like, you know, I didn't want to be an artist. I didn't want to tour. I had done a lot of DJing, but that wasn't really me. And I like kind of took my DJ selection skills combined with my, you know, work in technology, understanding. I have a degree in computer science with algorithms and the internet and digital marketing. And I was like, wow, if I ran a label, like, I really could help people. And as I really started to stand that up, like similar to you, like it just attracted people. And so I think the lesson there is like, you have to, one, you have to do that soul searching to find what's going to work for you, what's your passion, and then how can it also serve others and the world at large, and then do the hard work to get that off the ground, and the brand and the name, the umbrella, and the, making it in some cases bigger than yourself, right? Savage and Gravitas are not Donnie and Jesse, but it's an extension of us. It's a what we hope to create in the world and leave behind, and then putting that hard work. And there's a year, 2, 3, 5 or more of putting that out there into the world, refining it, getting feedback from it, and listening, but also holding true to your original vision. Because some people will tell you, this sucks, you should give up or whatever. No, I believe in this. It just takes time, and letting it develop, and having some patience and belief in what you're doing. And like you said, sometimes like getting out of your own way. What I learned through Gravitas too was just to involve more people. The more like people that I got excited through enrollment and registration, saying like, hey, this is what I'm up to, and this is why. Do you want to be a part of it? And then making sure that they had something in it for them, and that they got to participate. And like I learned so much about leadership. I learned so much about contribution, deadlines, creating projects, bringing things to life, and how how important it is to sort of craft that vision and be a leader inside of that was truly phenomenal. And then right then, as it starts to snowball, then you have to, like you said, I think you also said, check yourself. Don't get caught up in the success. Continue to stay true to the vision. Continue to stay true to the fundamental of what you were trying to create, and don't start to get high on your own supply and be like, oh, I did this. No, this is like, this is in service, right? I love fit for service. I love that idea that Aubrey's brought to the table of, what is all this for? Like, why, you can have all the money and influence in the world, but if you're not doing something with it, you will feel so empty. So like these rewards are really when we get to connect, or we get to go and do dope shows, or connect with amazing people. Like that's in the end, that's the reward, right? So yeah, I love that. I'd love to tell the story of Volana, and I want to share first. I don't think I've shared this publicly, but I'll say Laura Escudé, who's a amazing composer and producer. She does playback. She has a company called Electronic Creative. She's done playback for Kanye and The Weeknd, and just any artist, you name it, Porter Robinson. She lives out in LA. She was part of Fit for Service, and she connected with Volana. Volana is Aubrey Marcus's partner, like you said, and they started to write music together. And they got it pretty far down the road. Volana is a vocalist and sort of had the vision for what she wanted to create. And Laura had created a lot of the music. At some point, the electronic music production wasn't quite where I think everybody thought it could be. And you started to step in and work on that music. And it was like, you started to send me some of the stuff, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And at that same time, my mom was, pretty sick with cancer, but still hanging on. And, I had seen Aubrey and Volana, and then Parangi and Liquid Bloom, and I think there was one other person. They put out an album together, and I think the name of the group is Music for All Mankind.
For the good of all.
For the good of all. That's right. So, and I was really excited to see what that was going to be. And then I sort of watched the marketing rollout, the music rollout of that. And I was like, well, given how great Aubrey and his team are at marketing, and how, Liquid Bloom, at the time I was managing the Desert Dwellers, who, Liquid Bloom's one half of that group. And so I was like, that didn't quite hit like I thought it was going to. And it was different. And so, I could understand that. And you and I had a conversation. I was like, man, I would really like to help with the rollout of this release. And I think you had a conversation with Valana, kind of talked to her about me. I had met Valana and Aubrey. I've met Aubrey several times, but I met Valana at a show with John Hopkins and East Forest that they did in Austin, and just briefly. And I don't think she actually, connected the dots, but you started to tell her about, Gravitas and our work. And we were scheduled to have a call, all of us, and I wanted to like meet Valana and kind of hear about the purpose of the album and the goals, and kind of tell her about what I do. We were set to have a call on May 11th of 2022, and that's actually the day that my mom passed away. And so I woke up that morning and drove to hospice where my mom was sort of in her final days, and I knew that I had that call. And when I got there, they were like, your mom's not doing well. And yeah, she took her last breath in that room. And obviously that was a huge moment for me, and just like, beyond words. And then she was gone. And I, had experienced that. And I went out into the courtyard of the hospice and was just sitting there, just like honestly kind of in shock. And then I remembered, I have this call, and my wife's like, you're not going to take it. And I was like, you know what? Like, I am. And I had known a little bit about what this album was about. And yeah, so we took the call, and I got to talk to Valana, and it was the purpose of this album. The idea is all about the reclaiming of the sacred feminine, divine energy. And it was so crazy. It's exactly like what you're saying. Like the universe was just reflecting right back to me. And so it's like, I did that. I wanted to do this project in honor of my mom. And then, when I told Valana that my mom had just passed, she was like, oh, like, no. And I was like, yes, like, what else am I going to do? Honestly, it was like a welcome kind of a distraction and moment to do that. And it was so fun to work on that project. It was so powerful. And then when Valana released that to the world, like the amount of comments and power, and how much it affected women specifically, was just, it was so amazing. So I just, I want to thank you for connecting me with her, and that whole crew. Like, she's amazing. Aubrey's amazing. Valana's voice is, ace. And it was so cool to sit with you and her in the studio and see that start to come together, and obviously do it in honor of my mom. And I'm not sure how much of that you actually knew or not, but I wanted to tell that story.
Yeah. Well, when you said that, you reminded me. Yeah, I forgot about that being the same day as us supposed to. Yeah, that's crazy, man. Yeah, I remember you telling me about how meaningful that was for you, that it was the same day. And and because also, like, you were like, well, you could give energy. You were looking to be able to have the time now to give energy to something, and that felt like the right thing for you at the time.
Yeah.
Granted, the resonance between the two kind of principles.
Yeah, because the lead up on, like, my mom was, I got a whole year with her where the cancer came back, and I was like, I'm going to spend every single day, every moment I can with her. And just what a blessing and an honor to get to do that. And then for it to end like that listen, it is May 11th at 11:11 a.m. And when the deacon of the hospice came in, she was like, did you see this? And I was like, yes. It's this like 11:11, like the number of angels and the sort of divine. And it was crazy. And like, to me, that it feels like a dream. It feels like it wasn't real. And then, like, again, like all the interweaving of everybody that's involved with that, and just how like, I don't know. It's like, I feel like I couldn't write something as crazy as that. So, oh man. Oh yeah. I want to talk about the future. Well, sorry. I'm sorry, ancient future retreat that you have. Let's talk about that. Let's dive into that, because I'm so excited that this is something that you're developing. Tell me what that's going to look like.
So, firstly, I'm starting a community, right? Like, and I'm not going to talk too much about that yet. I'm not going to be launching it for another month and a half, 2 months, but it's going to be called the Ancient Future Collective, and it's not going to be just for music producers. It's going to be for, again, anybody who's interested in kind of weaving this whole ancient timeline future and bridging the gap between them. But the retreat that I'm doing, excuse me, is music production centric. And so we put together something really great, which is a 5-day immersive retreat in the swamps here in my home in Louisiana, a really, really beautiful place in the swamp called the Atchafalaya Basin out here in South Central Louisiana, which is a really unique body of water. It's an absolutely giant area of swamp where there's no current, which makes it unique in various ways. And, we have a floating, one of a kind swamp Maloka out there that's about a 30-minute boat ride from any civilization, and you're really embedded in the middle of the basin. And it's a big structure that's strapped to a floating kitchen. My really good friends Jason and Megan crowdfunded and had this thing built, and it is a work of art. And so we host various types of ceremonies there and just gatherings, and we're going to be bringing the participants of my retreats out there as well, and we're going to be doing some really cool stuff. So the idea is that it's a fully immersive in nature music production retreat where we're going to be teaching people the intricacies of producing this type of music, the technicalities of it, that oddly enough you cannot find this stuff on YouTube. And it's not really that odd because it's really multi-layered and there's a bunch of ways to go about it. But I'm teaching a particular tool set of workflow skills and everything that I've garnered, all the instruments and whatnot that I use, how we record, how we manipulate the organic sources, sound sources with digital techniques, and what exactly kind of goes into the mindset behind these creations as well, which is obviously a huge portion of this. And so making this experience immersive was really important to me. So from the home base where we're staying at, that's right on the swamp. I have a big 24-foot pontoon boat that we're going to kind of be cruising the swamp with, and that's going to be docked the whole time during the retreats. And really, I have a really cool agenda planned, and we're also going to be doing really cool stuff like equipping people in pairs of 2 with field recorders to go record their own Foley sample packs in the swamp, and other various stuff, hitting sticks together, splash in the water, whatever they can get creative. That's the point. And then teaching them how to turn that into a powerful, fat sounding sample pack, and then gamifying it and having people make music with these sample packs, and teaching them various techniques to kind of quote unquote digitize the sounds and ways to kind of tell the story and weave that ancient future vibe. For example, like starting it with the organic unaffected sound and gradually increasing the amount of manipulation that you're applying to it as the arrangement progresses, and granular synthesis and just various other techniques that really embody that whole ancient future vibe. And it's something that I just have been really wanting to do for a while. And my why is that I really want more of this music to be being released, and I'm really curious. It's like I want to play a role in seeding this mindset and the toolkits to be able to create this kind of music. And then I'm just really curious to see like how people implement their own fingerprints into and like create their own iterations of this kind of seed of like a vibe, right? Because it's going to branch and fractal out into these little infinite variations. And I'm really stoked to just watch that happen with the people who attend. So I put this out there. I made a wait list, and we had over 200 people join the wait list.
Wow.
Super stoked, like fully fill out the form, join the wait. And I was like, wait, what? This many people are really really for real into this? And I was like, so then we put out the full application, and we're well over, and like we have the luxury of being able to really craft a really cool container of people who we think are the best fit for the retreat. And then we are going to be doing some other things as well, and some other offerings that I don't want to talk about prematurely, but so now that I'm really getting a sense of how powerful this type of music really is, like, over and over. It's like slapping me in the face. And I'm like, wow, you know, the stuff that people were saying in the applications, in the long form questions for the application, had me tearing up, dude. I was like, wait, what? I mean, people were writing essays, bro. I'm like, I'm like,
Wow.
you know, it's like really just heartfelt stuff about how this music has impacted them and like why they want to be able to create it and this and that. And this is what their particular skill set is that they want to infuse with this, you know, vibe and whatever. And I'm like, wow, like we really are going to be able to do this. The program that I've put together is really going to help people like have the tools necessary and the knowledge necessary to understand how it is that we create this kind of music and the tools that we use and just the intricacies behind it. And then they really are going to be able to birth that thing that they've been wanting to birth like into reality. And that's going to be such a cool process to witness and very fulfilling for me to just have played a role in that. And for this retreat, I'm bringing in 2 other facilitator teachers as well, Geometry, who's an incredible producer from Nevada City, and Habitat, who is another incredible producer out of California. And both of these guys' styles just really, really are on point with the ethos of the whole Ancient Future situation. And so, yeah, it's going to really be a blast. And I'm really stoked. And I just love bringing people who aren't from Louisiana out here on the swamp, and they love it. So it's so often that people have this kind of like crazy you know, misconstrued notion of the swamp being some like gunky, muddy, whatever, full of mosquitoes kind of place, but it is a truly mystical piece of nature, man. We call it the Amazon in the US because the topography is very similar to down there, but more so it's unadulterated. It's swamp. It is never and will never be industrialized, commercialized. This is like Jurassic Park kind of, you know, swamp, and it's beautiful. The wildlife and the sound palettes out there are immense. I've sat in numerous jungles in and out of ceremony, and nothing to me sonically compares to the Atchafalaya Basin, the symphony of bugs, owls, and animals that wake up when the sun goes down. It's like one of my favorite things to do is lay in this maloka because it's screened in so the bugs can't get to you, but you're still very much outside. So like you're not hearing through a wall or something. So when we lay in the maloka and drop into these meditations and the bugs are waking up, we do this at sunset. It's like absolutely envelops your soul. And when you just and you know, kind of the rule when we drop in is like no one can talk. And so like you just drop deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and this just like kind of frequency that's being broadcasted by all of this life around you just like pulls you into a deeper and deeper trance, and you begin to just like remember your own origins as part of this circle of life. You don't need any medicine for this to occur. And like just it's a really, really deep experience, and I love sharing that with people. So yeah.
Wow, that's exciting, man. I'm really excited to hear what comes from this and see what comes from this. Again, I think you're finding a way to, you know, bring like one, you're sharing your home and your passion for where you live, right? And you mentioned earlier how you felt alone and an outsider, and now you're building this community and sharing that with people. That's such a cool story. That's so rad, man. Like, and then all of the food, and then the sounds, and the maloka, and then the getting to go out on the pontoon boat. Like this, it sounds like it's going to be transformational, life changing for some people. And I hope it is for you too. Like getting to teach, right, is no joke. You have to bring your full self, and you cannot phone it in. Like people will see it. And so I know you won't, obviously. I'm just saying, like from my experience, when I've had to teach people, it's like nothing else, because you really have to hone it and bring it, and make sure that you're, you know, fully communicating with people, because words are, as I've shown in this podcast, not always the easiest. So man, that's exciting, man. Well, yeah. And then it sounds like you've got a good solid waiting list, and you know, obviously you got the maiden journey to do, but it sounds like there's going to be kind of more in the future, hopefully. And yeah, Habitat's dope. I love
Mhm.
Geometry too, but Habitat did a song with the Clozy's Emergence um, uh, compilation that we did, and that one song has done phenomenally. And you know, he's kind of more on the house tip, but it's right there, right? It's right
Mhm.
there in that in the pocket. Where did you guys meet? How did you connect?
So I finally caught a set. So I fell in love with his track Vast. I'm not sure if that's the track that you're talking about, but um I've made a couple of edits with that track, and I really really love that song. And we actually played together in Guatemala for New Year's though,
Mm,
a month and a half ago. And yeah,
yeah,
so we linked, and he's a super dope human, and just the whole thing just really in resonance with what I'm putting together. And I was like, dude, you should come be part of this thing, and this is what we're doing. And he's like, let's do it. So yeah, but I caught his set too at Gaia Dance Temple on Lake Arilan in Guatemala. It was a beautiful venue that it was me, Habitat, Ataya, um, and Skycia basically, and then some others as well. And man, he killed it. It was sick. We were all vibing extra hard. Yeah, it was nice to finally catch a set. And yeah, there's a good bit of house in there, but he was going all over the place too, all over the spectrum in a really tasteful way. And he's just also really big on combining nature and organic, and he does it in a way that I really respect and admire. So I'm stoked to have him down. And Geometry as well, who's also another amazing producer. So yeah, I think this container with the three of us kind of coordinated and sharing our skill sets, our tool sets, our mindsets. And quite frankly, like I'm at these retreats, like I'm not holding anything back. I'm not keeping anything in my back pocket. I'm trying to like inform people of like, look, this is what I do. These are all of the tools that I use to do it. This is how I do it. I'm going to break down some of my project files and show you how I did the thing that the song that because I feel like that's like, I remember being a younger producer a long time ago and just seeing people who do this at a professional level, like seeing their project files is invaluable. It's like this like mystical thing. And so I want to share that with people too and give the full breakdowns, and people are asking for it
yeah,
obviously. And so yeah, I mean, I'm not holding anything back. I want to like fully equip people and like be able to see what they birth and like just be part of someone's like process from dreaming and like wishing from the depths of their soul and just desiring to create a thing and birth it as an expression of themselves, and then like watch them do it. That's going to be sick to watch.
yeah.
So I want to be part of it. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about AI. Like, how are you using it in your art, in your music? What are you worried about for us as like a society, as a world? What are you excited about? What do you think? What do you think's coming?
Man, that is such a dense question. Again, like things are about to get so bizarre that we really can't even conceive. Uh, and no matter how much I think that we're all trying to tell ourselves that, it's not something that we can even still like fully wrap around the implications of. Because the parabolic nature of the innovation and the self-informing and self-improving nature of machine learning is just something that's not integrated into our paradigm right now. Um, One of my, oddly enough, favorite use cases for AI right now is using DALI 3 and GPT to help me recreate visually some of my deepest psychedelic experiences that until then were just so beyond language that if I were to try to communicate them, it really didn't make sense. And GPT is so great at understanding context, and that when it doesn't get something right, I can have it revise until it's like recreating my vision on a level that feels congruent with the actual experience. And so that's been really cool. It works better for DALI 3 and GPT for that particular use case work better for me than Midjourney, even though Midjourney V6 just came out and is phenomenal. But, obviously it's like the world's also kind of wrestling with the ethical implications of these models being trained on free use or copyrighted information, and it's like whatever. So I find a boundary between like using it in for profit situations there. I think a lot of people are kind of on that same train. I don't judge people who do it. I think that leveraging absolutely earth-shattering technology like this is something that people are going to do, and like kind of getting in this bitterness mindset about something that's inevitable isn't really going to solve the problem. It's really complex dilemma that we face there, but in my case, I really love utilizing it for um, like recreating these experiences, and I've done so with like I have some really awesome pictures that are r- truly reminiscent of really deep experiences I've had that I don't even bother communicating with people most of the time, just because it's so bizarre and transcends language in such a way. But yeah, they're like really cool storytelling aids when I share some experiences. And then obviously GPT-4 is incredible for a gazillion different things. I really, really love GPT, and its use cases are evolving daily with plugins now, and you can use it for a million things, organizing your thoughts, helping you outline things, and whatever. But yeah, I mean, I stay up on this really awesome YouTube channel that just kind of, because it's so hard to even keep up. Every
Yeah.
week there's like a new, so there's this YouTube channel I watch. I wish I would tell you the name of it to your listeners. I wish I could remember off the top of my head, but it kind of just summarizes every week like what the developments in AI were, and it is crazy, dude. I mean, it's really crazy, and we are just now barely scratching the surface, obviously. And the only thing that I'm convinced that I know for certain is that December 2024, the world is going to look different already than it does February 2024.
Yeah.
I think that this is going to be one of the most like just kind of whiplash inducing technological innovative years that we will probably experience. And the interesting thing that I think about a lot is that babies being born right now are only going to know the world of AI. So it's like, is that going to, I mean, that's going to fundamentally alter, there's no doubt about it, it's going to fundamentally alter the human experience for this generation that's being born today. And it's like, what effects are we going to see from this? Is there going to be a camp of purists who are like no to AI and like whatever? Is that even going to be possible with how integrated it's going to be in our current life, without having to go start like woodsy communes and like whatever?
Yeah.
Like, what is going to happen, man? I don't know, but all I know is the world is writing the greatest movie script of all time right now, dude. It's crazy. I just I really don't know. And then, and obviously not to get dark, but it's like, in which ways is this going to be weaponized? In which ways is it already being weaponized that we're not privy to? Because you can bet your ass that's happening. And it's like,
Yeah.
is it going to finally become obvious to everybody that hackers, not militaries, but hackers are the most dangerous organizations on our planet? Like, is it like, dude, I don't know. I can think in a circle for 10 years about how AI is gonna, continue developing. But in the meantime, dude, I'm just illustrating my mushroom journeys, I guess. I'm good with that. I'm good with that for now. But I think that things are gonna get like really philosophically interesting though, because Ray Kurzweil, who some of you guys may know who that is, who's made some really eerily accurate predictions about technological advancement over the past few decades, as well as Google, posit that we're going to have AGI, artificial general intelligence, by 2029, 2030, and that around that same time that we will be able to quote unquote upload our entire neural network. I won't say upload our consciousness, because I have no idea whether that is even a viable sentence, but upload an actual map of all of our trillions of synaptic connections
Mhm.
into a computerized neural net, which I guess at that point we see what happens. What does that look like? Is it
Yeah.
act like a person? Does it look like what, what are the implications of that?
Mm.
I don't know. It's so crazy, and a lot of this ties into the law of one's kind of definition of fourth density and how the earth is quote unquote moving into fourth density. And in that material, this took me a second to really wrap around, but you have to remember the law of one uses really precise, concise articulations in language. But density, unlike dimension, density is defined by the perceivable interconnectedness of information by an inhabitant of that density, or like by consciousness, by the inhabitant. So like data points, which everything in our reality is data points, right? And many of these data points seem disparate and disconnected. And as you move, or as your awareness moves up in density, more and more layers of these data points become very obviously interconnected, and the ways that they are interconnected become apparent to your like sensory perception.
Right.
And a lot of this, and I don't know if anybody listening is familiar with the book The Holy Science, which talks about the different yugas and kind of the cyclical nature of the consciousness on the planet as it pertains to the precession of the equinox, or the passage of the 12 zodiacal ages, which is actually a wobble on the Earth's axis. But there's a lot of parallels between what's happening with our technological innovation and the remembrance of this ancient wisdom happening at the same time, with some of these materials that kind of discuss the implications of what seems to be occurring. And that's been really tripping me out lately. And I think that from a technological standpoint, that AI is going to be kind of the technological representation, much like kind of the internet was. AI is going to take that to a different level as it pertains to holding a gazillion data points at once and understanding, being able to convey the interconnectedness between them. And, there's some kind of technology I was reading about being developed that was kind of allowing what we would call telepathy or mind reading, and that they were able to convey, and that they first did it in mice, and apparently there's some human tests that are about to occur, convey information like wirelessly through people. And another aspect of because obviously we have the technology of brain computer interfaces being developed right now. We have Neuralink, and like what's that going to look like once people are we going to have two camps, people who get the implant, people who don't get the implant? What is it going to be like for people who are like cloud connected in this weird bizarre future, right? And another kind of definition within the law of one of fourth density beings is that like there's no deception, because the thoughts and motivations of each being can be sensorially perceived by other inhabitants. And so again, it's like, this is not like some etheric, it doesn't have to be some like etheric astral planes kind of concept, right? It can be something that's brought about through technology that just creates these conditions for conscious beings within that planetary sphere. And so it's like, if that's the set of circumstances because Neuralink did it instead of just some like evolution natural cause or whatever, it's still the circumstances. And so then like it's just this really kind of trippy realization I'm coming to, that it doesn't have to be some kind of weird woo progression through this or that to get us to these places where life, consciousness, human experience, conscious experience is fundamentally altered from the ground up. And so it seems that it doesn't really seem it. It's certain that some of the emergent technologies that are just being scraped right now, that we know are going to come to fruition. This is not 20 years from now. It's not even 10 years from now for most of them, including having household autonomous robots like the movie I, Robot, that are operating on AGI, artificial general intelligence, a superpower. We're within 5 to 7 years of many of these things. And we are, man, definitely living in some of the most interesting times this planet has seen in recent past. That's for sure. A very strange generation, dude. I am so grateful that I was like the last generation that like super was about playing outside every day. That's all I
Yeah,
know.
same.
Yeah, dude.
Same.
Straight up.
I mean, I think you bring up a good point, like this culmination of technology, right? We look at in the like last century, like 1900s, turn of the century, we're turning on light bulbs and electricity and starting to make phone calls, and now we're like inventing artificial intelligence. It's accelerating at a pace I don't think, like you said, a lot of people understand or we can even comprehend what the implications are going to have for our society, for our economy. That to me is scary. Like you said, the bad actors, and when put in the wrong hands without people with some guardrails and safeguards, which I mean, it just doesn't seem even possible at this point, is really scary. I think the upside, right, is like from what I understand, is like the uh, development of medicines is like the AIs can take the combinations of things and do 100 or 200 or 2000 where people can do three. It's just going to accelerate that. So there is the potential for amazing strides in every dimension of our society, but it is going to be right who's controlling it, right? That's where I think America, right, we're incentivized to work hard and create and innovate, but we also have these immense freedoms, and to some extent like our governments are like kind of anti-regulation for the most part. And I don't honestly even know where I stand on that, right? We want people to have these freedoms that we've enjoyed, but at the same time, like you look at China and they've got a lot more control over a lot of this, but that may, or at least that's how I see the world. Yeah. The robot at the, the AIG, like, would you say, I'll ask you the question, would you go with an implant? Would you go, I mean, I feel like the answer is yes, but
I'm not the first edition. I know that much.
I mean, and the other thing is like just of, the last couple of weeks, we've got Vision Pro coming out. We've got people walking around with screens on their face.
It's been looking pretty dystopian from the videos I've seen, but it also I'm not trying to brush off that it could be like a little anti-Apple just campaign the way it's been being captured or whatever. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's looking pretty dystopian to me, dude. And all I know about the brain
Yeah.
implants, like V1 can swerve me all the way, dude. I don't know. Like it just really depends on the flow of information, like what, and also like exactly how it's going to benefit me and what ways could this thing possibly be hijacked slash bad actor to, like, I mean, I lean a lot more towards no, but I
Yeah.
will just be dead ass honest and say that like if it's going to leave me horrendously disadvantaged somehow in the world, then like, or if I could literally like reach some, again, quote unquote, higher density awareness in some way that was safe and in alignment with the ways that I want to experience my consciousness, then perhaps, definitely not V1, but perhaps, but
Yeah.
like it's hard to know like what the world even looks like. But again, the trippiest thing to me is that we're here. This is a thing that's definitely happened, and I mean definitely happening, and it has not happened yet. This is the weirdest part, because there's this like anticipation, like what is that going to look like? What is that going to do to the economy? What's that going to do to the world,
Yeah.
to humanity?
Yeah.
What's that look like when it's used for with malintention or whatever? And anybody who's listening to this right now who is halfway interested needs to immediately, when this podcast concludes, go watch Joe Rogan's latest podcast with Tristan Harris and watch it 3 times. I have been pushing that podcast harder than an MLM, dude, because it is just like that important to me. And yeah, people have been receiving it that way too. I personally believe it to be the most important conveying of information that has ever happened, because
Hmm.
these two dudes like really know Tristan and I can't, man, for the life of me remember his partner's name, but they are on top of it, and they know all of the implications that we've all been trying to figure out and brainstorm, and they lay it out as facts. And it's just like, this is what's going. And to answer your question of like, well, how do we regulate it, their main conclusion is that the only way that we slow down the misaligned race to AGI, political race to AGI, is if an unprecedented group effort happens. And yes, that means between the US and China and Russia. And they're like, listen, this is, we know, but like we firmly believe this is the only way. And I mean, dude, they lay it out in a way that's just like, wow. Like that podcast had me shook for weeks, dude. And it's not necessarily in a bad way. It's in a way that like we all really benefit from being informed of things that we may not fully understand, because not all of us are these like super tech people who understand the implications of this, myself included. It's just like, wow, to hear it laid out by professionals who have been doing this on their level is eye-opening, as an understatement. And so I highly recommend that podcast. But it's crazy, man. All that said, I'm excited. The thing I know is it ain't gonna be boring. I know that much. So, like, and I'm all about not boring, dude. I think we all, I think like at the bottom of it all, we all appreciate being here incarnate at this just super interesting pivotal moment in history where things are just chapters, do. For so long, it seems in the recent past of our planet, there weren't chapters in a single generation. It's like the same thing the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
I'm with the variation, man. I'm a chapters guy. And I just, stagnation is not my thing. And so when something, even if it's like disheveling and just like, gives me whiplash, I'm still here for it. I think just like witnessing this planet in all of its evolving flavors and just like polarity and everything is part of the gift of Earth, and I'm here for it. So we'll see, dude, but it's going to be weird. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about, like you said, we were like kind of the last generation to go play outside. Like there's a couple generations now where they've always had an iPhone. They've always had a touch screen. They've always had, oh, this is how you download an app and this and that. And now we're going to have entire generations that they've always had access to AI. I worry because like my brother works for me on my web agency, and like it was like ChatGPT was just like kind of like a solution for everything. And I was like, well, right, but you need to like understand the founding principles of whatever you're doing first, and then apply these tools to it. It can guide you, it can give you good ideas, but you still ultimately, like, there's still some level that participation that you have to bring. It can't just do all the work for you. And I think there's also this like level of like, people got so excited about it. It was like, that was the only tool in the toolkit. Right. But, and I think that's a danger that people are going to get so wrapped up in it, and that's all that there is. And so, some of the things that, the hard work that you've put in to study and learn specific things like music production, like, do we start to lose the skill of learning if Chat GPT or these AIs make it so easy to get up on something, or does it make it faster and easier to learn it? But I fear for that. That's one of the things I worry in sort of the short term of people's lack of critical thinking, using it to sort of shortcut some of that hard early work of generating ideas.
Yeah, it's so it's so difficult. I think about that exact thing all the time. It's like, is this going to aid and personalize the process of learning in such a way that it, let's say, prevents 6-year-olds from being prescribed amphetamines because certain learning styles aren't compatible with the educational curriculum as it's laid out? Is it going to improve learning? Is it going to, or is it going to sap? Is it going to make everyone become intentionally lazy and sap the human creative spirit from itself without it even realizing that that's what's happening? I kind of view it as more of a tool, right? Just like psychedelics, and just like countries that have fully decriminalized like drugs. It's like, well, if that's available to you and you choose to go use it in that way, like, fine, I guess. And there will be consequences for that, though.
Yeah.
Where if you collaborate with it and use it as a tool in a way where you're imbibing it and creating a workflow with it that just kind of makes your life easier in some regards, but you're still it is still you. That's why, like, some of these crazy AI platforms that I'm seeing drop, like for like coaches and stuff, where it's like, create 120 videos in a day by cloning yourself in video and just like having GPT write the content for you, and you just like you can have 120 one-on-ones in one day. I'm like, one-on-ones? What are you talking about?
That's
People are paying
insane.
money for this. It's just like, be everywhere at once. I'm like, you can like become a content overlord. I'm just like, dude, what is
Yeah.
that? Is
That's not
like
good.
the antithesis of that whole industry. It's like the foe of the spirit of that whole industry. And so, like, that's, to me, personal opinion, is an example of the wrong way to go about that, and a money grab. It's like Asa Raskin is his name, Tristan Harris and Asa Raskin on the Joe Rogan podcast. Like, one of the things that they're talking about is that in order for us to get this under control, ultimately, the ultimate reduction is that the incentives have to change. The incentives behind the development have to change. And they're like, look, I know this is cliche, but like, it really does come back to like love, right? Like love and empathy. And it's like, in order for us to get there over the power of money, money and political advantage, the incentives have to change. And I believe that they're entirely right. I mean, what other incentive would you have to make something that is so impersonal, like cloning yourself, training an AI to be you, and then setting it free as a video chat bot, basically, to have conversations with people who are paying for you, access to you? Who would create such a thing if that was not just a greed infused money grab? Duplicate yourself infinitely, and you know what I mean? It's just like, I'm not trying to be all judgy wudgy, but personal opinion, again, for me, that's like worst case, like, implementation of this kind of technology. It's that in and of itself is dehumanizing both the host and the listener, right? So I don't know, dude, but it's gonna be bizarre.
No doubt. Yeah. I mean, I think what you were talking about, the learning styles, like, that's interesting. Like, we all, like, some people don't even know for a very long time what their learning style is. And the fact that we don't do that in school and kind of take the time to understand and get that about each person and have sort of a profile. Okay, this person is a visual learner. Okay, this person does great with written instructions. Like, that's scary, right? So I think we can implement AIs to do that and see, looking at someone's eyes, or even under, as they come back from a test, what's registering for them. Like, that is exciting, because like you said, you were prescribed Ritalin. You're obviously incredibly intelligent. In those early days of school, they teach very slowly, and it's like, you got it, and then you were bored, and your brain just craving stimulation, wanting something else, thinking about other things, disrupting. I was the class clown just because I already understood the problem and had the solution, and I was just like, well, it's time to have fun. I'm like, always getting in trouble for that. So
Same.
yeah, that's interesting. I do think that we have a whole problem with, like, not being able to pay our teachers. And so if we can do some help with that, that would be a good use case of what you just said. When we want to pay teachers $30,000, they're, well below the poverty line. When you talk about love being the answer, I mean, I think that's probably a pretty, I'm hopeful that with what we're seeing with the economy, where it's the American dream or the world dream of owning a home and being able to get married and have kids, that whole thing is becoming less and less attainable for more and more people, because they're being price gouged, inflation, greedflation, by all these different entities. And it doesn't seem to be, being checked by the governments. And people are going to fight back. People are going to rise up at some point against that. It is unfair. And it's kind of, it's scary that I'm not seeing it happen more right now. I'm very privileged. I think you're very privileged, but it's tough. It's tough to buy a home. It's tough. And then now, even if you own a home, like property taxes and things like that are so, and the cost of insurance is so expensive that I bet,
Mhm.
basically don't own a home or rent, or even if you own it, you're renting it. So that's, I think people are going to really, we are going to have some a reckoning around that. Um, but I don't know. It seems like when there's power, there's a vacuum. Even if we were to, make some real changes, I don't know that I have faith in whoever takes the helm that they're gonna, lead it any better.
I mean, one of the things that I think about as a potential from this whole revolution, which is clearly going to lead to a ton of automation and a ton of just like, probably blue collar jobs just getting kind of
Yeah.
obviously replaced with robotics and whatnot, is like perhaps the economy can change in such a way that people are more incentivized to become highly skilled at something, because we could shift to a creator economy
Mm-hmm.
where people as individuals, instead of being part of machines, where people can monetize their own skill set in various ways, like and not necessarily just like coaching, but teaching whatever it is skill that they have in their way that other people are wanting to consume, and then that person also has their own unrelated skill, this is their job as well, that they teach other people, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like this sharing of information that you're exchanging energy in the form of finances for, that's much more widespread than we see now. And that I think that the only way to make that more widespread is to lessen the number of just like easy whatever kind of jobs,
Yeah.
and like incentivize people further to gain skill. And I think that, something that I think of that's like, kind of unfortunate, I don't know how we would ever go about doing it, but like, how do we stop pure mayhem if all of a sudden we lose all kind of jobs other than some form of UBI, like universal basic income,
Yeah.
that covers people's natural living expenses,
Yeah.
and just sustenance, food. Like that's the only way to stop anarchy, right? Because like that's when we're really in trouble, is when like people are starving widespread. And
Yeah.
so, it's these are like really really real potential timelines for like, and we're going to witness this play out, dude. It's not an and if or but, like we're going to
Yeah.
watch much of this story develop in real time, and it's going to
Yeah.
be weirder than any of the weird shit we've seen so far.
Yeah, I think that combined with climate change and the projections of like, crops and people being displaced, that does yeah, I think we'll see the UBI. Like, I know they've tested it in a couple countries, places like Germany and Sweden, very socialized countries. Like America's, I think, far away from that. Maybe we might see it in
Hmm.
like a California, New York, but I mean, those, especially California, has some real problems at this point to deal with.
I keep saying shit's going to get weird, shit's going to get weird, shit's going to get weird, but kind of another thing that's emerging from this, and I'll kind of tie the circle of what I was trying to say earlier with the whole like fourth density law of one kind of correlation, because according to the law of one, as consciousness progresses higher density, your understanding of yourself as the creator, like as a facet of this single consciousness, increases like exponentially. So like you understand yourself as the creator more in quote unquote fourth density than in third density. You see yourself as this creator. And again, to circle back what I was saying about how technology can also bring us into this understanding, it doesn't have to be something else, like some type of like metaphysical process,
Mm-hmm.
is 3D printing DNA, which is a thing right now. That podcast that I referenced sent me down an absolute rabbit hole. There are DNA printers that can assemble genomes and genetic sequences, and you can then take those genetic sequences and inject them into a stem cell. So you can bet your ass that because this technology exists, it's being utilized in some really weird ways already in programs that we're not going to hear about. But uh,
Wow.
imagine being able to use large language models, describe an organism, have it write the genome, because AI is already being implemented to decode genomes as we speak, describe an organism, have GPT or whatever it is at that time write the genome for said organism, send that to your DNA printer, print it, inject it into a stem cell, and grow a fucking stegosaurus. I mean, I don't know, like or a cat dog, or like whatever, right? And so like wielding that power, which again is one of those things that is absolutely inevitable in this moment. It's not like a maybe this develops. It's already there. It's like, how do we integrate the various technologies that make it more efficient and cheaper? It's very expensive right now, and it takes forever too. But like wielding that power is again a means of understanding yourself as a creator, right? Like having a creative power in that capacity. So from these systems, again, that is like a characteristic of fourth density. So when people are saying things like, oh, we're moving into like 5D and like this and that, and like whatever, like from whatever system or kind of study that they garnered that from, I'm still not sure what happened to 4D when people are like, we're moving to 5D. It's like they forgot about, but I think that these kind of advancements are ways in which the conditions to describe consciousness in that way are developed. Like this is a slow, gradual process. There's not going to be some rapturous event that it's honestly not slow in the grand scheme. It's going to happen in one lifetime in our occurrence. So, but really it's that one of all the things we've discussed with AI trips me out the absolute most, is being able to use an LLM to describe and write the gene sequence for an organism based on your little text prompt for an organism, and then prints a genomic sequence, and then you are able to inject that into a cell and grow an organism. What are the implications of that? What are the implications of that on our understanding of what consciousness is? Is it an emergent property that's the result of awareness expressing itself through a genetic sequence? Like how do you define it at that point? How do you define what awareness point went into that creature? There's a Hebrew mystic text called the Sefer Yetzirah, where they were discussed as using the Hebrew alphabet, which whole nother tangent, but is correlated to the amino acids that DNA codes for, to create what they called golems, which were like the rabbis were creating or animating these beings from quote unquote clay, and like whatever, and using the Hebrew alphabet to do so. This is literally that. And so we're gonna watch that one pan out too. And like I said, I think that of all the thing we discussed, that's gonna be the weirdest.
Wow. Yeah, you always talk about DNA in some way. I feel like you get excited about it because it's sort of like this code, right? It is the code of our existence. I remember you telling me about a journey where you kind of like saw your DNA being modified and upgraded, right?
Oh, it happens every single time I drink ayahuasca.
Yeah.
There's a book called The Cosmic Serpent by Jeremy Narby that I read a few years after the first time this happened to me, and I was so grateful and still am for that book. It's always in my top 3 when people ask me for books. That finally gave me some context and a framework to understand what was happening to me, because I consistently have these genetic based experiences when I drink ayahuasca. And that's kind of, again, it's where like those two paths are running parallel to each other, right? It's like we have this physical technology that's able to manipulate DNA. We have CRISPR, we have things of that nature. And then we have this internal spiritual biotechnology within these plant medicines. And it's the same form of technology, right? But it's happening at the molecular factory level through the ingestion of these compounds that somehow contain something resemblant or reminiscent of consciousness and intelligence, that are able to work at the octave underneath our awareness, which is like our microbiological factory that and our DNA is 3D printing us into being constantly by translating itself into proteins that create our tissues and our neurotransmitters and everything else, right? And so it's like these two different mechanisms through which life expresses itself, and it's really weird. But I've and this has been studied now, that ayahuasca changes your epigenetic expression in users, and so that's what you're watching happen, and my experience has been such that it's guided by a thought process, that's seemingly not seeded just by myself, and that's what we call like
Mm-hmm.
mother ayahuasca, this kind of feminine energy, kind of motherly guidance. And as my thoughts about my own traumas, dispositions, reactions to things, trigger points, like as I'm reviewing them, things that have happened in the past, and I'm experiencing them through this current lens, I literally watch my genetics reconfigure themselves and upgrade my new responses to certain stimuli, my
Yeah.
new, like, I undo negative responses, I undo. And then you're experiencing simultaneously, you're experiencing the body as a mind body spirit complex, and you're witnessing the ways in which certain mental configurations are expressed in your physicality at the same time through various diseases, right? And so, like, through various afflictions in which catalysts, the law of one refers to this as unprocessed catalysts. Catalysts are these things, these traumas, these afflictions that happen to us that are an opportunity for spiritual growth. And when we let them ruminate and grow and seed, and we don't choose to efficiently process them, the law of one says that catalysts will unavoidably make themselves known by profoundly manifesting in your body. This is something that we see all over the place, and it talks about how the epidemic of autoimmune conditions in the Western world is symptomatic of the widespread inefficient use of catalyst, or
Mm,
AKA like not processing our shit. And so,
yeah.
like, it's a really interesting thing, and a really interesting part of the medicine. And it's why I'm obsessed with the Icaros, the songs that they sing during ceremony. And these melodies just enter my like morphogenetic field and assist in whatever change is occurring. And I've witnessed this happen, and was just, the first few times was just in denial. This is my brain on drugs. And now I've sat so many
Yeah.
times that I know this to be true. I witnessed this happen. I am in such a way where my cognition is intact while it's happening. I am analyzing that this is really happening right now as I hear
Yeah.
these melodies, these whistles, the glissandos, the Icaros. They permeate my field and make changes to the software that's immediately reflected, translated into the hardware that is my genome. And what seems to be changing is part of that 99.6% of our DNA that's not 3D printing us into being, that part of our DNA that we've so eloquently called junk for so long, that we now know follows certain principles of written and spoken languages. And like, this is a very intelligent facet of design within our genome. And you can watch it rearrange itself while somehow being very connected to what is happening. What's happening while it's happening. And that
Yeah.
is that, like, that's that inner technology, that biological internet that we have access to, through the use of these plant medicine traditions that far outdate any dogmatic perspective of connection to God. People have been drinking these plants for Lord knows how long. And
Yeah.
so it's these are the things I circle about, man, because they're happening at the same time, and they some of them kind of have this overlap of principle. Like I said, it's like you're realizing yourself as the creator through this unbelievable psychedelic experience of this or this or this, and you have this vast consciousness expanding experience. Like, for instance, in the case of 5-MeO DMT, where your consciousness literally physically expands into being all that is in a matter of a few heartbeats as a sensory perception. And then you understand yourself as the creator, and then you have this means of understanding yourself as a creator by text prompting an organism into being and 3D printing the genome for it. So it's like there's this convergence, right? And in the Holy Science, the author of that book was predicting what yuga we were in, what kind of age, which is an age that kind of defines the characteristics of the consciousness of the planet at that time. And what we're in currently right now, he called the Dwapara Yuga, which is a period of time where man masters subtle energies of electricity and magnetism, and in doing so, it pulls him away from his own spiritual knowledge. That was in 1894 that he said we were entering the
Wow.
Dwapara Yuga, shortly before the Industrial Revolution.
Wow. I want to echo that I've also experienced that the visualization of my DNA being upgraded in an ayahuasca ceremony. And you had told me about this before. And I was like, huh. And then I experienced it. I was like, is that just my mind? And then in subsequent, I've experienced it as well. And it's like you said, it's really trippy to feel like you're watching it happen and sort of also understanding and playing a role in the upgrade. And yeah, like you said, these medicines, these technologies, like you said, when my own research on ayahuasca, what I heard is that when people have studied the different indigenous tribes that are sort of the holders of this technology, they all say, how did you discover this? How did you know to mix these two things together? And they said the plants told us. And like how foreign that is to us as Westerners to start. And like, we're like, what? Like, how? And then as you start to experience it, you start to go, wow, okay, all right. I get it. It's sort of, maybe a little bit. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
oh man. All right, man. I know you can go on. I want to respect your time. That was a fantastic conversation. You are
cool.
amazing person to talk to you, and we're definitely going to have a follow-up episode. Good luck in Envision. Is there anything else you want to share with anybody? You got anything coming up you want to plug other than the Ancient Future collective, and obviously you got Envision.
Yeah, that's it, man. I just want to express gratitude for you too, as well, for everything that you've done to help give me a platform and to help me seed my music out there. And the whole team at Gravitas, the support has just been like surreal. And for having me on the pod, always love jumping into these kind of crazy conversations. And yeah, I mean, I guess the last thing I can say is everybody just keep an eye out if you're interested in the kind of stuff that we were talking for the dropping of my online community here shortly, probably in late March, early April. And yeah, if you're interested in kind of more of this type of information, books, reading, and music production and art workshops on top of that, keep an eye out for that and join it when we drop it.
Absolutely. And I'll also plug, right, your Ancient Future podcast. So go check that out. And yeah, man, thank you. And yeah, honored to work with you, brother. And appreciate your time today. We will catch you on the next one.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.